Hi, I'm Jessica Williams from The Lens, and this is the District 2 Orleans Parish School Board Candidate Debate. The Lens is teaming up with WWNO-FM to present these conversations with candidates, one for each district, to better inform our readers and listeners. In this district, we have incumbent Cynthia Cade, a longtime preschool director, challenger Darrell Laurent, an insurance and real estate agent, and challenger Dwight McKenna, a physician. Mr. McKenna couldn't join us today due to tensions that surfaced at other recent forums between he and other candidates. He declined our offer to attend. We also were unable to get in contact with Mr. Laurent in advance of the time that we were scheduled to meet today. That said, we do have one candidate who's here and who's ready to speak with us on the issues, so we're going to get right to it. The first question I want to ask Ms. Cade is, what do you see as some of the strengths of the Orleans Parish School Board over the last 4 years? And what do you think have been some of its weaknesses? Please, go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you, Jessica, and to the WWNO listening audience and the Lens. I thank you for having us, now me, to come before you to speak about the Orleans Parish School District. And it's a good question. What do you think? What do I think are some of the accomplishments that we've had as a board? Well, I can go back 8 years, because I was first elected to serve on the board in 2005. We were sworn in that January, and of course Katrina came that August, which was 8 months later. We hit the ground running and reopened schools in November of '05. The strengths that I found with that board was we worked together and we kept the focus of it being children. What was best for the children? And of course, at that time, we were thinking about getting schools open as soon as possible. That's how you had the first cluster of schools that came together to be chartered under the Airgears Charter schools that's under OPSB. We chartered the schools through monies that we received from a grant to get schools open, and did as much as we could on this side of the river, on the east side, to get schools open. It was a good board. I enjoyed working with that board. This new board came in and finished the work that we started. We approved a master plan with the first board that I was on, and we opened the schools. That's what I can say was a lot. Of course, during that time, we didn't know. A lot of people didn't know, because this was the first time a school district had ever had to open or reopen a real school district after a devastation such as Katrina. So with this present board, when you speak about the accomplishments, I can say that I've worked well with the present board that we have now, and we have continued to build on the success of the board that was from '05 through '08. With this board, we've accomplished keeping our finances in order. As you know, we've had 6 now unqualified audits, and that means that any auditor can come in and look at our books. We have outside auditors that come in to look at the books. So I know that the taxpayers should be happy about that. They know that their tax dollars are actually going to the schools and in the classrooms. I'm happy about our test scores. We're now second in the state, and we just got a new report that we're still holding second. Next year, I'm in hopes that we'll be first, but it's so much better than when I first came on the board. And not any of my opponents can say that. You know, my life has been dedicated to education. So working with the board, the accomplishments, we have turned our school around as far as finances are concerned, and we've put them second in the state as far as academics is concerned.
What about the weaknesses in the last 4 years, in the last 8 years?
I'll say the weaknesses of the last 8 years is a lot inheriting 5 new board members, them having to come in and become acclimated. You know, you have good intentions, but when you're running for a school board, if you've never sat on a school board before and worked with administration, worked with the community, you may have good intentions, and then you find out when you're actually sworn in and you begin to serve that it's not quite like I thought it would be. So if the weaknesses, I would say that they had to go through a learning process of what a board actually, their duties. We are to set policies. We're not to micromanage. And you say a lot of things, and you hear opponents say a lot of things on the campaign trail. They're going to do this. All they can do is go back to their community, talk with their constituents, get what the constituents' desires are for their community, come together with their other board members and the superintendent, see if they can put these policies in place to have these things happen. Of course, you have to also learn about lobbying, because we have to hire lobbyists to go into Baton Rouge every legislative session. And that's how we've gotten into the situation where we are now with the RSD. A lot of people don't understand that that's the Recovery School District, direct run schools that are not charter, the OPSB. It's a conglomerate of school districts now. It's not just one top down, heavy top down. So you have to even learn that. Anyone that's running for the board now have to understand the Orleans Parish School Board is nothing like it was when I first came aboard 8 years ago. Imagine someone trying to come back to the board after 20 years being away.
So I want to move on to the next question, which is around board structure. As of right now, there's been a voting majority and a voting minority on the board. These two sides have disagreed on everything from the appointment of the superintendent to the funding of the district's disadvantaged business enterprise program, and tensions between the two have been sort of fiery over the last year. Maybe you can speak to why you think some of this has come about, and also whether or not you think that this type of dissension affects the board's ability to get things done.
Well, you mentioned the superintendent, and you mentioned the DBE program and the division of the voting. Well, I take responsibility for the DBE program. I started that before this new board came aboard, when we were dealing with going into adopting the master plan. Then Superintendent Paul Passerak and Paul Vallis, Superintendent of the Recovery School Districts, we would have meetings. And this is what was promised to myself, Dr. Sanders, and the other board members that we had, that we would have local DBE participation. These are federal dollars, and I wanted to make sure that local businesses would get involved with rebuilding of the schools here in the city of New Orleans. And they went on record to say, of course it would be. However, the Recovery School District had, with Act 35, seized most of the schools. So that's where the bulk of the monies would have gone over to the Recovery School District. So that's the state now. So now I'm having to challenge and work with the state to say, well, you all are not using DBEs, and they're saying that the state doesn't have to. That's coming from the Governor, Bobby Jindal. They don't have to use DBEs. So I fought for a while with that, getting with the attorneys and all. Now we have a DBE program, and it took me a while, because, we are an elected official. You understand? And this is political. It is political, Jessica. And maybe some of my colleagues on the board felt that they did not want to really come out front to say that they were really for the DBE program, because now you're dealing with the prime contractors. That means the big contractors who are actually able not only to bid, but to fund your campaign. And I wasn't concerned about that. I was concerned about the economic development and getting involved with local small businesses who I know are great businesses. This is the backbone of our city, our small local businesses. You have big businesses that'll come in. They're going to make the money and take that tax dollars back home. It's not going to stay here in New Orleans.
So you think that some of the problem was they wanted to support the bigger businesses, whereas you wanted to support...
I'm not going to say what they wanted. I'm just saying that they didn't really support me.
And what about the appointment of the superintendent? Why do you think that some of the dissension came about between yourself and the other board members with that?
Being an educator, Jessica, I felt that we had qualified people here in the district that actually had doctorate degrees that could have followed in the footsteps of Mr. Darrell Kilbert and kept our academic side working, and worked with our CFO, then present CFO, to keep the finances going. It was a good match. And so I'm saying, let's get someone that's qualified, certified, and have the credentials to sit in a place, even if it's interim. Let it be a qualified interim. Now, we know that Stan Smith, our CFO, it's not qualified for a superintendent because he's CFO. He's a chief financial officer. So I'm saying keep the curriculum side and the financial side moving. Now, we had to make it a quick decision, but I was not in agreement with putting a CFO as our superintendent, even interim, who's working now with the CFO. You have slash. To me, that's kind of contradictory. You know, I'm not for it. I voted against it, and that's the way I feel. We should have had someone working coming from the curriculum side. We've always had Dr. Rosalind Dennis in the absence of Mr. Kilbert, who's already there.
In terms of even with just differences on policy issues, do you think that if you're elected, how will you work to make sure that those differences don't turn into the heated screaming matches that have happened at some of the public meetings that at least I've attended? How will you work together to ensure that that type of thing doesn't happen? Do you think that affects your ability to be able to set policy effectively?
Well, I think the public understands that we're 7 different board members, 7 different personalities, 7 different needs in our various districts. I don't think that the public would expect us to just sit down totally for every board meeting and just kumbaya and rubber stamp everything. There are going to be some heated discussions at times because that's how passionate we are about education. But at the end of the day, I think we should be able to keep the focus on what's best for the education system here in the city of New Orleans.
Okay. If you are elected...
when I'm elected?
If you are elected, what will you uniquely bring to the position that your opponents cannot? And this is your chance to make your closing statement and kind of leave your last impressions on the voters.
Okay, Jessica, thank you for that question. When I'm reelected to the board on November the 6th, I bring back the experiences that I've had. I'm the only candidate in District 2 that have dedicated their life to education. I was asked in 2004 to run by educators, 3 principals. I was asked to run for that position. It was an open seat. One of my challengers, Dr. Dwight McKenna, who has left, he's gone to prison. He was in 92. He was serving on the board and left to go serve time in prison. My other challenger, Mr. Laurent, he's in insurance. He's 26 years old. So he's not any of my opponents can actually say that they have the experience. They've dedicated their life to education, and that's what I've done. While being on the board, I've actually led the policy committee into changing and revamping a whole new policy structure for the Orleans Parish School Board. I led the fight with the DBE program, and though it was a lot of contention at time, we still wound up with a 7-0 vote. You understand? So also I've worked with the Health and Wellness Committee, being a chair of the policy committee, and we got our school cafeteria whole lunch program that we've gotten a national award for this year, taking out a lot of the junk foods and replacing it with nutritional foods, vegetables and juices instead of the sodas and all. So when I'm elected to go back on the board, Jessica, I want to bring the strengths that I've gained, the experience that I've gained to continue to work in. Now we're second, and we have 6 unqualified audits. I think we're on the right track. I want to keep it moving. We have some other things to do. We're not there yet. There's some other things to do. I'm not satisfied with the children riding on the buses and all across the city, bringing the neighborhood schools back. There are some things that I still desire must be done in order for us to get our school district back to where I'd like to see it. So I'm number 81, and when I get back, I plan on doing these things.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Ms. Cade. We really appreciate you, and good luck with your campaign.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me, and thank you to your listening audience.